entrepreneurs, almost by definition, are finding ways to do things that haven't been done before, seeing opportunities that not necessarily everyone has seen. If a lot of people have seen the opportunity, they're finding a way to make it practical to go in that direction. Entrepreneurs are curious. Entrepreneurs want to learn. They also, however, want to take action.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering Catalyst to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
Today, I am incredibly excited to be speaking with Louis Gump. He is a business builder, a transformational leader, a pragmatic optimist, and very recently, the author of The Inside Innovator, Practical Guide to Entrepreneurship. He's worked with some of the most recognized companies in the world, developing talented teams to achieve remarkable success for growth businesses. Today, he's the president of Cambian Solutions, which focuses on excellence in innovation, business growth, and team performance. And earlier in his career, he presided over award-winning mobile businesses at the Weather Channel and CNN. More recently, he served as CEO of 2 digital media firms and leading Cox Media, the advertising division of Cox Communication. Thank you for being here with me, Louis.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here.
So I'd love to kick off our conversation and understand, how do you personally relate to the concept of catalyst?
I relate directly to the concept of catalyst. I love what you and Shannon have worked on. I think this concept is critically important. I think the idea of having kind of a person who is affecting change is critically important. And as it relates to entrepreneurship, which I write on, or innovating inside large organizations, every entrepreneur, from my perspective, is a catalyst in some way.
I would love to expand there, because this was one of the key questions I had getting to read your book. Highly recommended. Another plug, The Inside Innovator. If you haven't heard of it or checked it out, get it today. So tell me more. When you say you believe that all entrepreneurs are catalysts, what are you seeing as the similarities or potentially differences?
Well, it helps to start with the definition of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur creates value through innovation and change within a larger organization. And that change is just inherent in the idea of being a catalyst, about being kind of a focus point or a starting point for helping things to happen, especially ones that are positive and ones that help organizations and people move forward. We were chatting a little bit about this before, and I think that entrepreneurs, almost by definition, are finding ways to do things that haven't been done before, seeing opportunities that not necessarily everyone has seen. If a lot of people have seen the opportunity, they're finding a way to make it practical to go in that direction. Entrepreneurs are curious. Entrepreneurs want to learn. They also, however, want to take action. And so that combination is critically important for entrepreneurs. I think for catalysts, sometimes, as you have pointed out to me, catalysts are doing something that results in increased revenue or increased visible value. It might be other types of change too. And so I'm specifically focused on the people who are creating value within these larger organizations. And by the way, not just for-profit ones, but also charitable nonprofits, government, and other.
Yeah, no, that's a great clarification. And so I think I'm hearing then that all entrepreneurs are catalysts. Maybe not all catalysts are entrepreneurs, or at least not their entire career. And it's not just when catalysts are within organizations, but it's the specific type of problem that they're putting their lens on that would put them in that entrepreneur category.
I think that's right. And there are a couple of distinctions that help to bring these people and these types of opportunities into focus. One is that entrepreneurs, from my perspective, are not derivative of entrepreneurs.
Right.
And you can't use the same exact toolkit to be a successful entrepreneur that you use if you're an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur typically is the owner or founder or both of a business. An entrepreneur is responsible for a division or initiative within a larger organization, most commonly. Also, an entrepreneur is not the senior most person within a large organization. the CEO, the chief marketing officer, et cetera. There's somebody who is responsible in the middle of the organization where they can't make the call unilaterally in most cases. They need the support vertically within the organization, and often they need it horizontally, especially from other functional areas. And so it requires a lot of team building, a lot of socialization, and a heck of a good idea that's aligned with the strategy of the larger company or other organization.
So important, that last part, aligned to the strategy of the organization. This is where catalysts often will kind of get on the wrong ship that way. So thank you for naming that. You and I were talking before we began recording about some of your history, starting in, customer support, working into really large transformational moments in digital history. And would love to understand, in your personal journey, do you see yourself as having been an entrepreneur from the time you kind of stepped into the organization, or did that identity for you come at some point in your journey?
I think I was doing it from very early on, but I didn't have the vocabulary to describe it.
Yeah.
And specifically, when I joined a company called Sealand, an international shipping company, and I was in the customer service group, I was sitting at a desk in a group of cubes with an orange-colored plasma quad screen with kind of a headset on, and we were shipping ocean containers around the world. And at that point, a lot of that was just making sure the containers got to where they need to be. And that's important work to do for all sorts of reasons, not least because it's exactly what the customers need. However, we found better and better ways to do that. There were two things, even then, that I was interested in. One, I found that a bunch of us, including myself, we didn't understand enough about the geography of the places we were shipping things to. So where is Surabaya anyway? And I was curious. I wanted to know that, and I wanted to be able to serve the customers. So just kind of on my own time, I ended up writing up a geography guide, which was a little bit of a project. And then I put it together, and I was like, hey, this is pretty useful. Maybe I'll share it. And it turned out that it was useful for the entire department. And I'd like to believe that we improved our ability to serve customers that way. Another one that was more technology oriented was when electronic data interchange, or EDI, was coming around. And we had to figure it out. And nobody there really knew how it worked, but it was a better way to communicate with our large customers. And so another customer contact and I just picked it up, and we started building the structure. And I learned that I loved that sort of technology-driven change. And I have to say, if there's a through line in my career, it's that technology-driven change to benefit customers. And I've pretty much been doing that ever since.
I love these examples so much. And going back to kind of the exploration of our intersection, creating the geography guide, does that count as entrepreneurship if it's not directly, geared at revenue?
100%. I think there are lots of ways to measure value. And in fact, when I was writing this definition, I did a lot of research. I read anything I could find out there. I found that there were kind of limited resources on the topic, but there are a lot of different ways to look at it. One of the best definitions is from a book called Entrepreneuring by Gifford Pinchot, and he defines entrepreneurs as the dreamers who do.
Right.
I like that one also in part because it doesn't limit the types of value you can create. I interviewed about 33 people with a specific set of questions for the book. And one of the things that stood out to me was when an entrepreneur and innovator named Quint Studer shared with me. He said, look, it could be big, it could be small. And he told me the story of his dad, who just knew how to repair diesel engines better than most people for trains. And, it doesn't have to be something that is a huge new initiative that's rolled out with fancy marketing. It really is connected to continuous improvement. I think another area that it would just be incomplete without mentioning is improvement in the way people work. Because it's one thing to go to work and, produce a widget. It's another thing to go to work and feel like you're welcomed and feel like you have the resources and tools both to deliver on your primary responsibilities, but also to grow as a human. And I think that that is a big part of entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs that I know that are most effective are dedicated to lifting up others around them.
I love it. Okay. So In your journey, specifically in your life as an executive, can you share one or two of the major challenges that you faced in transformation?
Sure. Oh boy, you have all day. I think most people who are driving innovation inside a larger organization, you have the problem to be solved, whether it's a technical one or a product problem or whatnot, but a service one. But also you have to figure out how to navigate through the various gates and moats and hills and whatever else to get to the endpoint. One of the ones that comes to mind is when you have existing infrastructure, technical infrastructure or otherwise, and it has to be adapted for something new. I'm thinking of one experience I had where we had some technology that was built for the desktop web, and it was highly optimized to do a great job for that. And then we got into a situation where we needed to deliver election results for mobile websites and mobile apps. And the technology behind those apps is actually quite different, not just at the client side, not just on the device that a customer is using, but also on the back end. And so we ended up trying 1 year to use the technology that had been built for the desktop web before the cross-platform technology had been built, and we just fell on our face. It didn't work very well at all. And frankly, we had some long conversations and some unhappy customers. However, a strong organization knows how to learn from failure, which is what we did. We said, okay, that didn't work. We have to find, at least at that period of time, we had to find some technology that could optimize for mobile users. So if you have, the equivalent of, rush hour at a fast food restaurant at your website or your app, then you can actually meet that demand. We rebuilt it. We used a different technology, and we were just able to go as far as our customers needed us to, and we did it within a reasonable period of time. I think another one is the processes for evaluating ideas. The ways, one of the best ways to stifle innovation is to have a single process that is applied for big ideas and billion-dollar businesses and apply that to small emerging businesses as well. For example, if you have criteria, well, you have to have a payback within this period of time, and you need to generate this amount of revenue and whatnot. That's a perfect way to make sure that virtually no good idea makes it through without some sort of special treatment. And isn't it better, instead of needing special treatment to innovate, if you make innovation a way of life? It's part of your business, especially if you care about the long-term health of the business. And so I think organizations that understand that an evaluation process that values smaller ideas, smaller businesses, emerging ones, and applies different timelines, different investment criteria. They make available people in various parts of the organization that have skills to help them along. When that happens, then a lot of magic can follow.
I want to follow up on both of these. I'm so excited. Okay. So the first one, we have to learn from our failure. You fell on your face. As an entrepreneur, as a catalyst within organizations, how do you determine when it's a moment of failure? Do you know what I mean? Like, when do you know it's time to pivot?
Well, first of all, some situations are easier than others, and I take your question the way you're describing it, but without intentionally being overly blunt. When your website doesn't return the content that people are looking for, you failed, at least.
Right. You've got measures in place, and they just were not working, and so you're like, nope.
Just they get a 404 error, and the customer's like, okay, either I didn't get what I wanted, period, or I'm going somewhere else. Both of which are bad if you have a world-class brand and you want to always be there to serve your customers. So, it's serious business. It's not something to be brushed off. You also can bring in a team, adapt to that, make the short-term fix, and then work on a bigger fix. However, in the spirit of your question, I think sometimes you don't know for a while. You're like, oh, well, we set these metrics, and how do you know if the metrics you set, this many unique users, this much revenue generated, this amount of time. And that's where there's more art than science in a lot of cases. I know people who are like, hey, fail fast. And that's a heck of a good idea. But sometimes people have a great idea and the first thing they tried didn't work, but if they try one or two other ways, then it's actually going to be your next big business. Right. And so I think one of the ways that you do that is by understanding the goals really clearly. Let's take an example. Let's say you're in a media business and you think mobile is going to be big someday. And it takes you twice as long as you want to build an app. Not that I've ever seen this happen.
Hypothetical completely.
Hypothetical completely. It takes you twice as long. And then when you start, it grows twice as slowly. Do you call that a failure? Right. Or do you call that a really valuable learning experience that's an on-ramp for what's next? In the case of the Weather Channel, we built a generation of apps with Java, Brew, Windows, Symbian, and whatnot. Java and Brew worked pretty well. The other ones were very small, but we gained our development chops. We learned what people wanted. We created things like radar images that could scale from small to large and all sorts of things. So then when we needed to create a generation of video, which really did have a nice revenue profile and an incremental one, we were able to do that. And then we had to come back around and build mobile web. We were ready to do that. And then what really changed the trajectory of the business was in 2008, when the Apple App Store and Google Play started, and we launched our apps not too long after that. And, some people might assume, hey, the Weather Channel had a great brand, with a bunch of talented people. Of course we were going to succeed. And it looks a little inevitable in hindsight when you look at those apps being some of the most downloaded and used of all time. But actually what really happened is that we had been building the foundation for the better part of 7, 8, 10 years, even before my time. And credit goes to the people who were able to see the opportunity coming and then to stick with it, even when we had to navigate around some things that work better than others.
I'm making some assumptions as I hear this story that, because you said you have to start with knowing really clear goals. And so given that it was a group of people and you said they stayed with it, but I'm guessing you were iterating as you learned, right? Like here's potentially the updated goals and bringing everyone along with you. But tell me if I'm wrong there.
That's a great point. We were iterating as we went, and it went back to, for example, if I were to summarize and paraphrase a goal of our team, it's like, hey, we're the Weather Channel. We want to be where people are when they care about weather, whether it's hot, cold, wet, dry, whether it is a severe weather emergency, or whether it is lifestyle content. And if mobile devices are, a platform of choice, then we want to be there. So the overarching goal was be there for our customers and be there in a way that has strong business fundamentals over the medium to long term. Mm-hmm. So once we understood that, then, hey, look, if the Java app on Sprint worked really well, fantastic, do more of that. If the app on Symbian, maybe didn't go as far, maybe you don't invest as much in that one, you keep it there, but, it would be hard to declare one of those, a much smaller one, a total success, but none of them were without their value.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I'm going to use some different words than what I'm hearing. Course correct me if you want. You'd said earlier, right, making sure you're aligned to strategy. I'm also hearing if we can keep ourselves aligned to the why, right, a sense of purpose, and to the where, that vision of what our destination is, how you're supporting customers, the how should have the opportunity to iterate. In as we identify the failure, it's not like this how didn't work, therefore we failed. It's, are we still making progress, meaningful progress to that sense of purpose and vision? And if so, then do we want to continue?
No, that's exactly right. And also, this is a place where it's easy to get into the line of thinking that, hey, we within the business kind of have a near monopoly on the good ideas. And I want to add that in my experience, that's not the case at all. Sometimes somebody from marketing who doesn't know much about mobile would give us one of our best ideas. Sometimes someone in technology would. I distinctly remember when my boss and I went to the president of the Weather Channel with a specific idea related to a URL that we really wanted to have, and it was an extension of mobile. And I really wanted to invest. And the president of the Weather Channel said, I think it's a good idea, but I believe we can invest more profitably and with more benefits to customers in these other places. And so we didn't move ahead, which for me was disappointing at the time. And yet she was absolutely right. she had a better perspective than I did as a non-expert. So I would say if we recognize the value that different people have within the organization, we're a lot stronger.
You're pulling me back to the second thread, with the challenge. You said a process for evaluating ideas and going on to talk about, making sure that we're finding ideas from different places. I have no idea if you know this. So one of the things Shannon and I do in the world is we help organizations find their catalysts. We upskill them because a lot of us are disruptive rather than helpful before we really become more conscious. And we connect them to the executive strategy so that there is, we're beginning to build into the machinery how we can identify the folks that are at the front end of that change curve. I'm curious, what have you seen as ways to really begin to find the right people? Because how would you even know to pull in that person for marketing? Like, educate me. Maybe there's things that we should be helping companies build that we haven't thought about.
Well, I suspect that you all are well on the way to helping that to happen. Some of this is not so much really difficult as it is just doing it. It's a little bit like exercising enough times a week, whatever the definition of that is. You need to do it to stay healthier for most of us, but that doesn't make it easy. And for example, one of the things that helps the most is, getting to know people around the organization. I found that simply by, going to lunch, going to coffee, listening to people in the meetings, watching the ideas that come through other communication channels, you find those people pretty quickly. But I'll add that there's another approach that works really well, and I've seen this not done well, and that is what I call in the book the concept of the round table. And it's a mindset. Some people take the position and perspective, either consciously or unconsciously, this group or this division within the company really understands how it needs to be done. And everybody else or some other people are in subordinate roles. I found it's typically much more effective for catalysts, for entrepreneurs, to take the perspective that we have a round table. Everybody's ideas matter. And furthermore, we want people from different places. So I believe you all did an interview in the last few months with Minette. And in that interview, she was talking also about finding people from, legal, from HR. And those words could have come out of my mouth because a lot of the time you'll find people from various parts of the organization that would help. And I would add that that's not only true within your organization. Also in the book, as I was writing it, most of what I was doing, was really focused on the company, the team, the initiative. But then what I realized is a lot of the things that I've been involved in that have been most successful have been connected to the broader industry. And so sometimes, in answer to your question, you look beyond the walls of your organization and you find people, for example, if you're in a media company, how about those folks at the wireless carrier who understand what emerging technology is coming down the pike? How about the people at other media companies who are trying to solve similar problems? How about the entrepreneurs out there who have a different take on things and all they need is one big partner to break through?
Yeah.
All of those sorts of people can become some of the biggest propellants of an organization as they grow.
I just love it. This, I'm just seeing kind of the amount of new ideas that are fodder to really help drive that entrepreneurship. It's just beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. So if I can hand you a magic wand through the screen, and in your role as executive intrapreneur, what type of resources or support would you have loved to have had to have supported your change making?
Okay, well, I'll take the wand and wave it a little bit.
Yeah.
And, for me, a lot of it starts with process and structure because that's what makes sustainable innovation happen. And part of the process I mentioned before, essentially a way to allow ideas to percolate within an organization, find a central place where they can be evaluated and the people who are advocating for them have a voice. That's important. Secondly, and also process, but it's financial in this case, It's setting aside dollars in the budget for innovative ideas that may or may not happen. You don't have to have an innovation center. In some organizations, it's a great idea to have an innovation center. In some organizations, it doesn't work so well. But if you allocate funds and recognize that they might work and they might not, that's when you help to realize some of the best ideas. And oh, by the way, you incorporate a mindset of risk tolerance, which is critically important, because lack of risk tolerance sometimes works in the near term, especially if you have a nice cash producing activity, but it almost never works over the medium and long term. And so you need to have the financial allocation. The next one is I would love to have known what to hire for back in the day. We had general hiring criteria, but I'm here to tell you, the characteristics for somebody who makes the website run exactly right every day are not exactly the same characteristics that are needed for someone who's going to be pushing the boundaries most of the time. Every now and again, you find somebody who is just kind of a polymath. They can do a whole bunch of different things, but most of us have very distinct strengths. And when you have at least a handful of people scattered around the organization who are really good at affecting change and bringing new ideas forward, that's also something that I would love to have seen. And one more, just for the record, and this might be something that's an opportunity for you and Shannon too. I'd love to see training for bosses, because a lot of people who are in a supervisory role at different levels within the organization, they're busy, they're stretched, and many of them are fairly enlightened, but they are just focused on other things. And I'd like to make sure that, especially in areas where companies have the opportunity to grow, they create an environment where they can, welcome someone who has the skills, encourage them to bring the ideas on, and then stand back and let them run. The places where I have seen the most sustained and successful entrepreneurship is where people are welcomed like that. Otherwise, and you've probably seen this too, people get frustrated. They find that their ideas can't move, and they either, eventually, there's an old Harry Chapin song called, I don't remember the name of it, but it talks about flowers are red. And there's a teacher who has a student, and the student wants to paint flowers all sorts of different colors. And the teacher says, I want you to paint it red. And eventually the student starts painting red. That's what happens in organizations. You start painting every flower red when in fact there's a whole bunch of options, or they leave. And in that case, you lose your biggest talent. The converse is true as well. When you have an environment that welcomes those sorts of people, they become your next generation of leaders.
I just love this so much. And this is an area we've done quite a bit of research with Catalyst. And I just agree with you wholehearters. With managers in particular, a lot of Catalysts will kind of find a manager and follow them in their career, because they're often fellow Catalysts, because they fully understand them. They understand where to place them. They understand the type of challenge that they can leverage them in. And I feel for managers that are either don't know themselves as a Catalyst or are not Catalysts, because Catalysts can really ignite the corporate immune system. And so then as a manager, if you begin to get complaints about this person and you don't really understand, and if they've had a lot of autonomy and, they don't know what to do, we begin to see gaslighting happen, even if this person is really well-intentioned. So I love that. That's just a great idea to make sure that we're educating everyone about how to find their entrepreneurs, what it means, what the benefits are, how to support them well, how to have conversations with them if feedback is coming in, I'm assuming. I just love it. I love all the things. I really, really do. Louis, thank you.
Thank you.
That was a great magic wand. Totally going to take that. Okay. In your own career, has identifying catalysts that are kind of your peers been useful?
Enormously useful. And there's this sort of magnetic force that happens when you find somebody else who's driving change. I'm thinking, for example, of in the media business, if you find somebody who's trying to solve similar problems at ESPN and similar problems at CNN, and you're at the Weather Channel, then you might get together. However, that's kind of one circle of differentiation. Sometimes it is a person at a little known service provider. Sometimes I mentioned large companies in the space, software providers. There's so many great ideas. And one of the best ways to meet people is actually to join in industry gatherings. And so, one of the reasons I mention this is because in a world where there's cost cutting and cost containment, and in many cases it's needed, it's easy to cut back on travel. And cutting back on travel is a time-honored tradition in the companies I've been a part of. You can almost predict it like the crops coming in the fall at times. But on the other hand, what it does is it reduces, if you're doing that to an extreme, it reduces the ability for people essentially to be out in the marketplace and learn from people who are not like them. Yeah. And so from my perspective, one of the last things that I'm going to cut is travel that results in people having informal conversations, not just the Zoom call, but informal hallway conversations where you can learn and grow and get your next big idea.
Yeah, we run a network for Catalyst executives, and they come from all different titles, which is unusual for an executive network. And what we hear about the value for them is these nuggets that they're getting from folks who don't sit totally in their lane, right? So we'll have, CEOs, head of HR, head of innovation, folks that really have different places, and they can all go to each of their own, industry events. But I love what you're saying is that it's, who's going to be a peer with you, but get you outside of what you're seeing every day.
I think that's true. And I'll actually put an addendum on that as well. Yeah. I think that's true anyway. Although some trips, you can either travel to a conference and come away with some nuggets that are helpful, but not transformative. One of the best ways to increase the value or the likely value is to be part of a working group or to be part of solving a problem. So for example, when we had the Mobile Marketing Association and we were working on a code of conduct for text messaging, both to protect consumers and also so that we could build a successful and viable business. That was enormously helpful. And it wasn't just a bunch of people in a conference room, although that was part of it, but it was also some gatherings outside of that. And we even went to meet with the FTC and the FCC and to learn what the government and regulatory needs were so that we could build in a really smart way. That felt very collaborative, and it was enormously educational and ultimately very successful in contributing to our business.
Congratulations. I'm so inspired to hear how often you are supporting. Obviously, you've made great strides and transformations within the organizations where you work, but all of the work that you do to bring ideas into your organization, but to support folks outside is really, it's very inspirational, Louis.
Thank you. And I would add that it's a whole lot of people. It's when you have a community like that, I would just point around to 100 people and say they were doing similar work and we did it together.
I love it. Yeah. All the boats are rising together. Thank you for that.
That's it.
All right. As we wrap up today, I'd love to hear, who is your favorite catalyst, past or present?
Okay. So it's hard to name a single favorite catalyst, in part because I know a lot of them. And with the research that I've done recently, even more. Right? However, I'm going to answer your question for today. My favorite catalyst today is Ralph de la Vega. And Ralph ran AT&T Mobility. He was vice chairman of AT&T. He immigrated from Cuba as a child. He grew within BellSouth, Singular, and beyond. I had the opportunity to work directly with him and even more with some of his team members as I was at the Weather Channel. And he was not just creating an ecosystem. By the way, if my memory serves me correctly, he and his team were responsible for introducing the iPhone in the US for the first time. So they had many transformational changes along the way, but he created an environment where many other business leaders could grow. And so I respect Ralph for what he accomplished visibly in his work and the environment that he created for partners like us to work with. But I respect him enormously for his commitment to helping other people and essentially showing the way.
Thank you for that. Thank you for what you're doing in the world. Thank you for the Inside Innovator. Another plug. If you haven't seen Louis's book, please go check it out. It is a practical guide to being a change maker within organizations. And thank you, Louis, for joining me here today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Tracy.
For those of you listening, if you'd like to learn more about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at www.catalystconstellations.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, which I'm sure you did, please take 10 seconds to rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you have other catalysts in your life, be sure to hit the share button and send a link their way. Thank you.